So it's now my pleasure to introduce Andreas Bluthner, who will be moderating our opening panel of 3 panels, and this one's called Fortification, a Food System Game Changer Hiding in Plain Sight. Andreas is the Director of Nutrition for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's currently leading a refresh of the Foundation's nutrition strategy, which will focus on innovation, private sector engagement, and large-scale food fortification. Andreas also leads cross-foundation collaboration on nutrition, ensuring that all strategies that invest in nutrition are coordinated and aligned for maximum impact. And prior to the foundation, Andreas served as the Director of Food Fortification and Partnerships for BASF SE, a leading manufacturer of micronutrients and an active partner for decades with global fortification programs and stakeholders everywhere. Andreas, over to you.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks for the introduction, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here today. Let me first of all welcome our distinguished panelists here, and also the several hundred participants out there. I'm really amazed about the audience. I'm just imagining how that would be if we would be in one room now, but I'm also glad that we have the opportunity to do it in the way we see it. Food fortification, a food system game changer, is what we will discuss today. Let me set the scene a little bit with a few remarks. I think it's important to understand that fortification is not the only intervention, and neither a silver bullet nor is biofortification. It's in context of a food system and other interventions, a very important component, to mention diversification, education, and supplementation also. So these are complementary approaches, and I think it's for the nutrition community very important to be united about that aspect. When we look at large-scale fortification, I think it's a bit a moment of celebration also, because Lawrence had mentioned it. There's millions and millions of people that enjoy the right to food, that enjoy essential nutrition being provided by mills, providing added nutrition to fortified foods. And you have governments stepping up, 130 roundabout having salt mandated in their countries, round about 80 having wheat flours with minerals and vitamins being mandated, round about 35 and counting for edible oil with vitamin A, D, and sometimes E. I think that's very important, but it's also an unfinished agenda we're talking about here, because in our refresh at the Gates Foundation, if we look at the map of global vitamin and mineral deficiencies, we see many countries having deep colors of deficiencies that haven't been able yet to frame the market in a way that it delivers micronutrients to those who are in most need. So there's a gap in regulatory frameworks, and I think there's also a way to go and some potential to bring fortification really in the base of the pyramid segments of the population, because compliance is not everywhere like it should be. So there is a mandate, but not everywhere. I think the government fully has embraced the priority to also monitor, and sometimes business also has not embraced the opportunity to really stick to quality expectation of consumers. I think in times of COVID, it's really important to reconsider that agenda, and therefore I'm really delighted we have the right people here on the panel to discuss with us what can be done, that governments, donors, and private sector can step up as partners and fill these gaps and make this half full glass a full glass at one point, ideally when we come together to the next summit. And the run of show is that our panelists will 3 to 4 minutes have an opening statement, and then we come to some questions. And I would like to open the panel with Inoshi Sharma. Inoshi leads as a director of the Food Fortification Resource Center located at FSSAI, the Eat Right initiative in India, a true food systems initiative, and also works on scaling up nutrition and fortification across the country. She has various health and nutrition assignments before, including supplementation of iron and folic acids. Inoshi, it's a pleasure to have you. Can you tell us a little bit how India is going about the challenge of micronutrient deficiencies?
Thank you so much. Like you just mentioned, the Food Safety Standards Authority of India has in fact been working towards fortification of various staples in the country. In fact, we have operationalized the food fortification regulations in 2016, and they've officially been notified in 2018, which really means that staples like oil, milk with vitamin A and D, wheat flour and rice with iron and folic acid and vitamin B12, and double fortified salt have been provided with regulations. We've also created a plus F logo, which is a unique logo which can be placed on the fortified products, which then makes it easier to distinguish between a product which is not fortified. So like you mentioned, we've got the FFRC, the Food Fortification Resource Center, which is like a technical hub which provides a lot of assistance to states as well as the food business operators and various ministries of the government. So at present, we've got about 114 companies across 157 fortified products across various commodities. There are 80 brands of fortified oil, 55 brands of fortified milk, 12 brands of fortified wheat, 8 brands of DFS, and we are still working. I mean, we have 2 brands, but we're still working with the rice. There has been a tremendous traction in the oil and milk industry, with 47% of the top 10 players of packaged refined edible oil industry and 36.6% of the organized milk industry fortifying as per the FSSAI standards. We are also taking forward the mandate of fortifying edible oil and milk through the open market channels. Very soon, we should have the mandate in place, which will ensure that all oil and milk which is available in the open market is fortified. Also, we are currently working towards mandatory fortification of rice because almost 70% of Indians consume rice, and there is a considerable issue of anemia in our country. So with the public distribution system and the open market, we are targeting that maximum number of people will be able to get fortified rice in the next 4 to 5 years at the most. We have the largest programs in the world, the midday meal scheme for school children and the integrated child development services in rural areas, as well as the public distribution system through which we are hoping all the 5 staples can be provided. So at present, 22 states and 5 union territories have adopted fortification of several commodities across the government safety net programs. So that's it from me.
Great, thank you very much. I think that really showed us that on framing the market, but also on social safety net programs, there's a space for fortified food. And I think hidden but in plain sight, it's fantastic to see that a government talks about the opportunity of addressing micronutrient deficiencies, because that's the start of taking it on. Arun Baral, it's great to have you, the CEO of Harvest Plus since 2019. And Arun is very active as a leader in Harvest Plus and biofortification in developing and delivering micronutrient-rich staple foods, working on commercialization and partnership efforts, and he brings 30 years in the international agricultural sector to the table across all sectors. It's a real pleasure to have you. What can you tell us about biofortification, the progress that has been made, maybe the complementarity also with other interventions, and what remains to be done?
Thank you, Andres. It's great to be here and great to participate. Quickly, to your question, I'll give the background about biofortification. A lot of people might want to know what it is because it's such a new innovation. Biofortification is basically, breeding crops, staple crops, with high densities of minerals and vitamins, particularly vitamin A, and then in minerals, iron and zinc. And zinc, as you know, is getting a lot of attention in these times. So, the progress on biofortification has been great. 15 years ago, nobody knew what biofortification was, but fast forward now, Harvest Plus, working with its partners, have proven that crops can be bred with high micronutrient densities. When these crops are eaten by people who are malnourished, their nutrition status improves, their health improves. And 15 years later, we have about 370 conventionally bred crops released in the countries and in 40 countries, and approximately 50 million people have had access to this technology. So I would say, in summary, biofortification in these 15 years, what we have seen is, number one, it's cost effective. Number two, it's evidence-based. And number three, it's very resilient. And also, we're finding it's very, very complementary to industrial fortification, supplementation. So all these three technologies, if we can, like you said, make them work together, I think we can work and do sort of a lot of service to the malnutrition problem that we have. So what's ahead? Now, ahead is all about scaling now. Like I said, the crops are ready. They need to be scaled up, and we are looking at partners, like-minded organizations, governments, private sector, and other civil society actors to scale up. And I just want to give you a quick story, because I see Agnes, Dr. Agnes here, and we started the journey in Rwanda with high iron beans, and Dr. Agnes at that time was the Minister of Agriculture, and Harvest Plus entered Rwanda and worked with the Rwanda Agricultural Board, our CGIAR partners, and really, with her support and leadership, we were able to release new varieties that were much better, not only in nutrition content, but in yield. And, fast forward, end of 2019, approximately 23% of all the production in Rwanda with respect to beans has gone to high iron beans. So, the smallholder farmers are not only getting nutritional benefit, but economic benefit. And now the private sector is getting involved, and the government is supporting in further scaling up. So if we can replicate the Rwanda experience in many countries, that would be the end state, where the public sector, the private sector, the governments, and all are working together with industrial fortification, supplementation, to really improve the nutrition status. So in summary, biofortification is, like Lawrence said, right there in front of our eyes. It is very complementary to food fortification. If we can work together, we can do a lot of service to the mankind. So over to you, Andres.
Thanks, Arun. I think that was a great pledge for biofortification. I've seen some of these successes in the most rural and impoverished regions, where people really benefited from these crops with additional nutrients in there. Let me shift gears now and come to Valerie Gugliani. She is WFP Assistant Executive Director since January 2018, and as a friend of a partner and a partner of the World Food Program for the Peace Nobel Prize 2020. And this said, you are leading the program and policy development at the World Food Program, and social protection, inclusion, that includes the school meal program, that includes the very innovative cash transfer programs, women empowerment, and I could go on, because the WFP is really the front end in fighting hunger. And in your former assignments, you have been responsible for East and Central Africa, some of the really complex and challenging engagements of the World Food Program. And before that, you have worked for the US government, among assignments, USAID. This said, Valerie, I mean, what is the World Food Program bringing to the table when it comes to fortification, and what are your opening statements? Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Andreas, and thanks to Gain and all of the panelists for making this summit a reality. I think that COVID-19 has shown us very clearly that we need to change the way we engage, but it's also helped us to understand that we really need to be advocating for good nutrition and healthy diets as a priority for governments and the private sector. And getting nutrition right is not just the recipe for saving lives, but it's also that critical investment in the future. At the World Food Program, we've been working with partners to ensure a healthy and diverse diet for all, but we realize and we recognize that 3 billion people can't afford healthy diets. And for 50 years, we've been using life-saving fortified foods to prevent and address malnutrition with a focus on priority groups. But fortification really is a very powerful tool to address these broader micronutrient deficiencies in entire populations. And that's why when we provide assistance, we fortify the staples that we buy and that we use in our food basket. And that's, you know, that's not small potatoes. We buy nearly 1 million metric tons of wheat flour a year, about a fifth of that amount in vegetable oil. And ensuring that it's fortified is doing the right thing by way of the populations that we serve. But clearly, there's a much bigger impact that comes when fortified foods are part of the social safety nets and social protection systems that governments roll out, and that potential that fortification has on lives and livelihoods of the most vulnerable through social safety nets like school feeding programs are the most efficient ways to reach large numbers of people. To help make that happen, we work as advisors at the national level. We support governments end to end to implement fortification as part of their programs, starting from advocacy, communications, education, establishment of national norms and standards and policies, but also action research on the impact and the feasibility. And that becomes absolutely key. And this is really important to also then support in the actual integration of these fortified foods within those government programs. And we were talking before about India. In India, we've been supporting the development and rollout of a pilot to integrate fortified rice in 15 states and 3 national safety nets. And the piloting in 5 of the states is something that the government asked WFP to take on. That impacts 45 million people. But as we've heard, rolling this out more broadly when the testing is finished has the possibility to be impacting 800 million children. So huge there. Private sector is also absolutely key. At the local level, our engagement ensures helping local private sector establish mills and blending capacity to invest in that capacity so we can buy from them closer to the people we serve, but also at the global level through partnerships with many of the members of this panel, organizations like DSM and others, to get fortified foods into retail markets. So this really requires all hands on deck, and this is the kind of engagement that is needed to make that happen. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Valerie. I think that was a comprehensive overview what WFP is doing, and I like that you underscore the cross-sectoral partnerships. In my former life, when I was with private sector, the WFP colleagues at the ground were in each and every of these workshops. And also for the mills, it was very important that you were among the first buyers of fortified food, for the pioneers that stepped up on fortification. I think you underscored the interest we also have as an organization at the Gates Foundation to look deeper into social safety nets as a channel for targeted delivery of fortified foods. And I think there's more work to be done on streamlining the purchasing and also the quality assurance in these programs of fortified foods. Also ambitious fortified foods and innovative ones like double fortified salt. Let me move on to Dr. Agnes Kalibata, the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy on the UN Food Systems Summit in 2021. A very important milestone for the nutrition community. And she is responsible for the outreach and cooperation with key leaders, including governments, to make the summit a success and lead into the decade of action to improve food systems around the world. Dr. Kalibata has served as the president of the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, and she was Rwanda's Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources from 2008 to 14. She holds several honorary doctorates and won in 2012 the Africa Food Prize. We are delighted to have you. Can you give us a little bit of an intro on the Food Systems Summit and the role fortification and biofortification has in there?
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this. One of the key failures of our food systems today probably is what we are discussing today, the micronutrient deficiency that we see across the board. 2 billion people across the board are suffering from one or the other form of micronutrient deficiency. And the challenge is the people that need this the most are the people that don't have access to it. So the beauty about what we are discussing today, the role of fortification, industrial fortification, and biofortification, is the ability to reach millions of people and that have no other capability to get these nutrients. And again, some examples we are given, very good examples we are given, whether it's the example that you gave on Rwanda, where millions of people that we have over, at the time of that program, over 40% of the population had micronutrient deficiency of one form or another. So the program, actually, when this was introduced with your support and the support of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, it was rolled out countrywide. And the beauty of biofortification has to be that rolled out at huge scale to be able to have the impact that where the people that need it will get it. But another example is then the work with World Food Programme and the DSM, where industrial biofortification, as we have seen again in Rwanda, efforts, lots of partners come together and decide to take on a huge undertaking, where in this case, again, the issue of micronutrient deficiency is being addressed by the government itself, by World Food Programme, by IFC and by DSM and the United Kingdom government, where these partnerships went into industrial production of food that is fortified, so that millions of people again that are suffering can have the opportunity to have to have appropriate micronutrients. The implication for the Food Systems Summit. The Food Systems Summit is looking at game-changing ideas, and this particular track that we are interested in is actually chaired by Lawrence himself. And ideas that are impacting how we might be able to reach millions of people with micronutrients need to find their way to this action track. We are going to need, once those ideas find themselves into that action track, we are going to need and to engage governments around within the food systems dialogues that we are having. We are going to engage everybody in terms of the science, put them to pressure test them through the science of the summit that is happening. But really, at the end of the day, when those ideas are put on the table, there's a huge opportunity to have international level, global level buy-in, and to reach millions of people that are now currently challenged by micronutrients. So yes, the Food Systems Summit offers a huge opportunity for ideas to come forward, but it also offers huge opportunity for global buy-in when these ideas do come forward.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that was a great pledge for the Food Systems Summit, and also put fortification in a context where, I mean, governments frame markets so as to deliver better nutrition, and nutritious foods becomes the new norm after these systems have been re-engineered. I think that's an example to really be further discussed with Lawrence. I think the right person is leading that stream. Carla Montesi from the European Commission is director there for development and cooperation. We are very pleased to have you. She has been responsible for the Directorate Planet and Prosperity since 2018, and was in charge for investment facilities and the implementation of external dimensions of the EU digital agenda and the Green Deal. Before that, she was director for Western and Central Africa, and had diverse responsibilities in the field of EU external policy and development and humanitarian affairs. Carla, the EU and the Commission have been stepping up in the recent years on nutrition, I think very purposefully. I've witnessed that myself also at the country level. There was a lot of interest from the EU delegations in helping with nutrition. Can you give us a perspective where that journey is leading you likely?
Thank you, Andres, and hello to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to join you at this summit and this panel. Uh, Let me say that at the European Commission, we are convinced that food fortification is an important component of an holistic food system approach to fight malnutrition that remain an important priority also for the European Union as one priority to accelerate the progress towards the SDGs. Unfortunately, as was already said, hunger and malnutrition are on the rise again for the first time in decades. And unfortunately, the COVID global pandemic is putting even more pressure on food and nutrition security. So we are working with our partner countries to try to reverse these trends through different modalities. Could be by promoting innovation in agriculture, by investing in sustainable value chain, by partnering with the private sector that, as Arun just said, is a key player in the transition towards the sustainable food system. Allow me to recall the ambitious commitment that the European Union has taken to support the partner countries in reducing the number of stranded children and pledging to invest 3.5 billion by 2020 to improve nutrition in partner countries. Let me say that we have been tracking the progress on this commitment annually, and at this stage we are already met our financial commitment, but of course we need to scale up efforts and the partnership to reduce stunting and other forms of malnutrition. Now, we know, it was already said, that in many countries we are facing complex challenges in reducing malnutrition. So it's clear that the food fortification can provide an immediate solution to fill the nutrition gap. Our approach on this is we use industrial fortification, nutrition sensitive agriculture, and also in emerging situation where point of use fortification. In all this, the priorities for the local production of fortified food, because it's at the same time also a great opportunity to create jobs for young people and the women. So as you mentioned, in the last years, we have scaling up our effort also in financing several industrial food fortification projects, but also nutrient enriched crop projects, where we are working with different partners, NGOs, government, university, and the UN agency to make fortified food available for the ones that we need them most. And all this using different modalities that were already mentioned by previous speakers that could be, of course, scaling up nutrient-enriched crop through production and market availability of seeds, to finance small and medium enterprise producer, or to strengthen regional market and the trade facilitation of fortified food, or empowerment, ensuring the empowerment of women producers, but also, I would say, integrate fortified food in all the social protection program that we are supporting also in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. But also enhancing digital technology and the knowledge management. All this will add also the support to the promotion of appropriate regulatory framework or capacity building or the monitoring system. But let me just underline that all this, keeping in mind that food fortification measures should be, in our view, always be adapted to the local context and designed to address first the causes of the macronutrient deficiency. So I stop here and ready to answer, to participate in the debate. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate Lawrence and the team to have succeeded to organize this global summit also in these difficult circumstances. So over to you, Andres. Many thanks.
Thanks so much. I think that was a great statement underscoring that fortification is really about local food, and it's a local solution where nutrition sovereignty is taken in the hand at the country level. Let me really thank the European Commission and also other stakeholders in Europe for the continuous contributions over the last years, including member states and the private sector. So we have seen a lot of commitment, and we hope we can continue that great partnership with you in the course of the coming years. Let me now go to Dr. Martin Friedrijn, the Director of Agriculture and Agro-Industry in the African Development Bank. He is a plant scientist for 27 years and worked on molecular breeding of cassava. He's a Rockefeller Foundation fellow. He has worked in various institutes, including also in a cassava project funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where he was the project director and chief technical advisor to the Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria. Martin, what would you like to tell us about fortification and the prospects in the areas you work in?
Thank you very much, Andreas, and I would like to thank also Lawrence and Hedat and Gain for inviting us to the Global Summit on Food Fortification. It's good to see fellow panelists, Dr. Kalibata and also Arun and many others. The African Development Bank invests in economic development of its 54 member countries. So we invest in infrastructure, we invest in better governance, but we also recognize that we need to also invest in what we call gray matter infrastructure. That is the well-being of the next generation, because stunted children leads to stunted economies. And as Lawrence has always shown so well, you know, the malnutrition in the first 1,000 days of a child has incredible, you know, consequences for the child and also for the economy. So the bank has a number of policies and strategies and also partnerships that addresses malnutrition, especially with respect to biofortification and food fortification. The first is what we call the multi-sectoral nutrition action plan 2018 to 2025. It aims to catalyze nutrition smart investments to support the 40% reduction in stunting across the continent, with the core focus on investing and the promotion of safe, diverse, and nutritious foods. We also have the bank's Feed Africa strategy. That is, it's a bold and, you know, an ambitious strategy to reduce, you know, malnutrition and poverty and hunger on the continent. And as part of the strategy, we have what we call the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, or TAT. TAT actually promotes biofortification to key commodities. That's high iron beans, and also orange flesh sweet potatoes. We also work closely with Gain, especially in Gain's marketplace for nutritious foods. And even though it's a new initiative we've started, but what we look forward to supporting some of the SMEs that Gain is working with and helping to produce nutritious foods. The bank also hosts the African Leaders for Nutrition Initiative, funded by the Gates Foundation. Thank you, Andres, for your support there. And here we support, we have global champions, and we also have heads of states that helps advocate, you know, with countries on the need, to invest, in child nutrition. We, as you know, also have a scorecard as part of the ALN, the Nutrition Initiative. We have a scorecard that actually assesses each country how they're doing, with respect to nutrition. We also work very closely with the AU, as well the AU Development Agency and NEPAD to promote, regional adoption of policies that actually help to improve nutrition, especially with respect to how much the country is spending on nutrition. But to end, I'd just like to give you a few examples of what the bank is doing in 3 countries. For example, in Ethiopia, we have launched what we call the multi-sector approach for reducing stunting, whereby we help farmers growing high iron beans, cowpeas, mung beans, high quality protein, maize, orange flesh sweet potatoes, camelina, amaranth, and other vegetables. We support them with irrigation, with the inputs to ensure that these farmers actually can produce a quality product and also sell it. And then also in Cote d'Ivoire, in the agro-industrial projects in the northern part of Cote d'Ivoire. We also promote biofortification with the farmers there, just to ensure that the country has, high zinc maize and also high iron, beans and orange fresh sweet potatoes, on a much larger scale. And finally, in Niger, one of the countries of the Sahelian, poverty and malnutrition is very rampant. We have the resilience and reinforcement of nutrition projects that seeks to improve, access to nutritious food, a more diverse food basket for the populations of countries. Let me just stop here for now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Martin. That was very concrete. In interest of time, I move swiftly to X, and last but not least, representing the private sector here at the table. I personally feel a very important constituency in fortification. He's director of PT Indo Foods in Indonesia, a leading food company which produces a variety of products, including noodles, dairy, and edible oil. He serves as a co-chair of Scaling Up Nutrition. Axton, I know you have been a champion in Indonesia. We met often in Indonesia in my former life, and I'm so glad you kind of always paved the way for not only for your company, but also for the whole sector there. Can you tell us a little bit about the role the private sector plays in fortification and how you see that in the Indonesian context?
Thank you so much for the invitation once again. Thank you, Andreas. I will try to break it down to why this is important and how private sector can be part of a thing, and also showcase what Indonesia have been doing as well. So one of the earliest successful national policies recorded is in 1922, that's about 100 years ago, which Switzerland actually iodizes salt to solve a severe iodine deficiency problem. And with that, now iodizing salt is one of the most common forms of fortification, with over being done in over 160 countries. And then in developing countries as well, fortifying the staple foods and condiments have led to virtual elimination of the micronutrient deficiency disease such as goiter and beriberi, and flour fortification of iron and folic acid has also led to decrease in iron deficiency anemia and increase in folate status in over a dozen developing countries. How can we actually replicate that into the developing countries? The developing and the lower income countries as well. So with 1.5 million people affected by hidden hunger, we definitely need to find a solution that's fast and furious. So food fortification, for one, is one of the best investments in terms of cost effectiveness. The increment cost per person per year is about 5 US cents for iodine salt and 12 US cents for wheat and maize, fortified with iron and folic acid, with a lifetime cost of less than $15 for the two fortified commodities as well. And for the weighted average basis, every $1 invested in fortification generates $27 in economic return from adverse diseases, improve earnings, and also enhance work productivity for the state. So being that, being part of the Scaling Up Nutrition movement through the business network has allowed me to learn and embrace all actors, UN network, NGOs, civil society, academia, and also the donors, and be part of a solution that is country-led. A political will of the government will unify all stakeholders to have a shared goal to end all forms of malnutrition. And the effectiveness of fortification national programs is not only the determining factor of the biological efficacy of the fortified food, but also the effective and sustainable implementations, improving coverage and quality of delivery, monitoring quality and compliance, and of course the measuring progress of national programs as well. So I would now coming back to Indonesia, using Indonesia as an example, we have a long history of large-scale fortification. Salt fortification since 94, voluntary flour fortification led by Bogasari flour mill in 98, which becomes mandatory in 2003. Vitamin A fortification of cooking oil since 2012, and now last year became mandatory. And the most exciting one is in 2019, the government developed a rice with fortification to be distributed through non-cash food aid. to the underprivileged population. So, of course, we understand that the whole COVID situation has caused social distancing measures to have displaced a lot of millions of people's jobs, and that actually leaves a lot of households sacrificing quality and quantity of food, good consumptions. And of course, world trade is disrupted as well, and in Indonesia is no different. So this year, yeah, in the beginning of the pandemic, I think Indonesia was definitely faced with a lot of supply chain issues, disruptions due to countries and borders lockdown. And this affected the food supply, for one, and also the micronutrient premix supply. So the Minister of Industry actually issued a relaxation of the mandatory fortification of wheat flour and cooking oil from the period of April till next month. But in keeping in the industry's commitment to the government to reduce malnutrition, despite the relaxation of rules, such companies such as Bogasari and the Bimoli edible cooking oil and the rest of the industry in Indonesia has kept with the commitments to continue the fortification of the staple foods. So to end an ending note is like food fortification has already been well established since 1922, and the strategies and the address it's a good way to address malnutrition deficiencies in vulnerable populations. The private sector, for one, and the government can work together through appropriate selection and understanding of food vehicles that are consumed at large, coupled with the effective compliance mechanism and monitoring, can be leveraged as a solution to reduce and prevent micronutrient deficiency worldwide. So I think I'll end it at that. I think we'll continue with the discussion.
Yeah, I'm afraid we have to be a bit creative with the discussion because I see we are running out of time, but I think you made your statements very forcefully and comprehensive. Let me try to be a bit creative and do a bit of a snapshot. Can you answer me my questions in one word, maybe? What is needed to scale up? And you can kind of put forward one word. I think that's what the participants will take home. And may I start with Inoshi? What does it take in India to scale up? What would be your one word on that?
I mean, the first thing I would say would be political will, because if you've got that, then it's like so easy to, get all the resources and all the places and everything in place.
Great, political will. Exton, you are next on my screen here. What would you say is the one word to take home for scaling up?
For me, it's partnerships.
Ah.
I think how the government and everyone can be partners and scale it up together.
Okay, great. Valerie, may I ask you, what do you think is the one word the WFP would like to grave in stone here?
Investment. This is the
investment. Now I need to change gears here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Arun, your one word.
I would say partnerships and collaborations. Yeah.
Okay, then I go to Kara.
Sorry, Andreas, to who? To me?
Yes, please.
Okay, so for me, it's the same political will with the government engagement from the government, but also the great contribution from the private sector that will be the key to help us in supporting all the different partners.
Fantastic. And Martin, what would be your take home?
I would say scaling diversified food basket. We need to get people to grow more biofortified food and also eat vegetables and other foods. Yeah.
Oh, the diversified food basket is not too far from the food system. So Agnes, what would you like to take us home?
I think a lot of it has been said, so I'll use one word to summarize all that: leadership. We will need leadership at government level. We need leadership at private sector level, and we need leadership at community level and institutional level. So leadership and prioritization of this agenda is going to be very critical.
Fantastic. Thanks for your flexibility in terms of timing. I think it's great we have been respectful to the upcoming, very interesting elements of the launch of the summit. And this said, I hope that all of you in the audience will stay for the upcoming next sessions. And I pass over to, I think, Lawrence again.
Thank you, Andreas and panel. What a great panel, and Andreas, great moderation and a fantastic last question answered in one sentence or less. I learned a lot, and with my action track number 1 hat on, I'm noting rice fortification from Inoshi in India over the next 4 to 5 years. I'm noticing Valerie, Carla, and yourself, Andreas, all mention linking social protection programs, which my World Bank colleagues tell me are engaging 1.8 billion people worldwide, engaging those programs in getting more fortified foods into those programs. And again, the potential for biofortified foods to go to scale with the example from Rwanda. And Axton, there's lots of F's in this space: financing, food, fortification. You've introduced 2 more. Fast and furious. I love that. And you're quite right too, because as you said, fortification's been around for 100 years or more. So we need to speed the process up. And I thought Agnes's point right at the end was perfect. Leadership. One of the things that didn't come up in your session was innovation. And I'd like us now to change gears a little bit and go to the next panel. And it's pretty clear that I think success in scaling requires constant innovation.